Welcome to the world of scale modeling with Mike Ashe, where techniques, tips, and creativity come alive with dozens of tutorials, projects, tape-up reviews, and picture references to help you build better scale models and enjoy our wonderful hobby. Welcome to part 6 of building and detailing the Revell Monogram 148 scale B-24D. In part 6, we're going to airbrush the wings, the fuselage, and apply the decals. So let's get started. I've got the lower wings taped up in order to do the yellow zinc chromate in the wheel wells and the lighter gray color for the fabric colored control surfaces. So this is how I did it. And I'm going to use really low pressure air here so that I don't get any bleeding underneath the tape. Everything's been burnished down with a toothpick. So we'll go ahead and we'll do these first. I did this on both wings, of course, and I'll go ahead and do this airbrushing first, and we'll take a look and see how it came out. I've got the two colors airbrushed with two coats, and it came out pretty good. Once the tape's off, you'll see the variance in color, and I have the tape off on the other wing, so I'll show you that in a second. But yeah, looking pretty good. So on the other one, there you go. I've got a little bit of overspray there, touch up I got to do, and a little bit here that I'll do with a detail brush. But other than that, and you can see the variance, slight variance in the gray color. So yeah, it's looking pretty good so far. Next up will be the superchargers, and then I can flip it over and paint the sand color on the top. After, of course, I do all the masking. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. I like it. I've got the superchargers masked, and this time, instead of burnt metal, I'm going to try burnt iron. It's got a little more of a rusty gold color, copper color, not rusty gold, rusty copper color. And this is how I did it. I used small strips to outline the circular areas and then long straight strips here. So we'll go ahead and shoot it, and we'll see how the color looks. But that's how I did it. And yes, I used lots of tape to liberally cover everything so that there's no opportunity for overspray. I've got the large sections of masking tape off, and I just wanted to show you once again, before I pull off the rest of this tape, how I did the masking. I used small strips, and I went all around the circle, and then long, thin strips here, and then worked my way out with larger strips. So that's how I did it, and with all the tape removed, that's how it looks. So now I'm ready to start working on the top side with the sand color. So we are making very good progress, and I'm really pleased with the way this is coming out. I've got both wings painted, and they came out pretty good. I've got a little bit of overspray here in this tiny area where I didn't put any masking tape, but when I go ahead and work on the fuselage, I'll just put some tape here and shoot it, and it'll be fine. But other than that, it came out pretty good. Now, this color is like a semi-gloss, so once I give it a good coat of polyurethane gloss for the decals, for the fuel caps, as well as the insignia, it'll look pretty good. And when I go ahead and shoot it with some flat, it's going to lighten up this color and get rid of this semi-gloss appearance. And so the other thing is, of course, these cowlings are taped in place. And what I'll have to do is when I'm going to pull them off one at a time, and I'll mark them on the inside so that I know where they go, so I don't mix them up. But I really like the way it came out. Looks good. So how I did that was to mount the wing on an elevated surface like here and spray it. So here's how I masked the fabric control surfaces, and this is the masking for the underside and the edges. So now all I need to do is go ahead and pull the tape off, and the wings will be in good shape. And yeah, I'm really pleased. It came out pretty good. So I wish this sand color had a little more pink in it, but again, it's going to lighten up once I shoot it with a clear flat, and then when I use my light gray pastel dust here to really lighten it up. And of course, I've got to do some sponging around the edges here to replicate worn paint along the leading edges too. But for the most part, and I'm going to try to keep the weathering very, very light on this aircraft. Now, this particular aircraft, the black boot stripes on Strawberry Bitch were not, they took the covers off. And I've got an interesting picture that I found on the web of Strawberry Bitch as she was sitting in the outdoor display area at Wright-Patterson in the early 70s, which wasn't long after World War II. The control surfaces were taken off, but on that particular photo, the upper color was a straight line, like I did here. It was a straight line. It didn't come down and go up. It was a straight line. It was a really interesting and instructive photo. I'm glad I found it. But yeah, the B-24D Strawberry Bitch was sitting in the outdoor display for a long, long time before they did the restoration work on it. So now I need to go ahead and pull off all the tape and mark the cowlings, and away we go. So we're making good progress. And yes, I use lots of masking tape. And here, I tried to cheat by just that little area. I didn't put any tape on it, and it got spray on it. I don't know how that happened, because the way it was mounted, you wouldn't think that that would happen, but it did, which is why I use a lot of masking tape. I got the rudders painted a lighter color, and they came out pretty good. I darkened the color that I had used on the ailerons, and I'll show you that in a second. I redid the ailerons too. It was too light, but this is much better. So this is how I masked it, and I just mounted it elevated with several layers of balsa wood, taped it down, and airbrushed both sides. So when you take the tape off, it looks like this. Once I'm done with these rudders, I'll go ahead and take this tape off for the gluing surface. But yeah, it looks good. So here's ailerons redone, and they came out pretty good. Slightly darker. So now what I have to do, I got to touch that area up there, and so this is ready for glossing and decals. So yeah, we're moving along, and it's all looking really good. The aircraft I'm depicting had a command stripe that was yellow that went right across here all the way around the fuselage. And so I airbrushed flat white, which is always a good undercoat for flat yellow, and then of course the flat yellow. And I did it all the way around the fuselage. So now what I have to do is just put some tape, and we'll be ready to re-airbrush it, this gray color, and then we'll mask it and then do the upper sand color. Here are the Bombay doors, and that stripe will go right along here, and you can see some of the remnants of the white here. So when you're airbrushing either red or yellow, always put a flat white undercoat. Makes it look much better. So we'll go ahead and mask it and airbrush it, and after I pull the tape off of the Bombay doors and fuselage, we'll see how it looks. So we are almost done with the fuselage. We're getting there. I've got the fuselage airbrushed with 2 coats of the sand color, and it came out pretty good. And I've removed the masking tape for the command stripe, and that came out pretty good too. So I've got just a tiny bit right there, and what I'm going to do is, instead of trying to fix that, I'll just sponge that a little bit with some silver paint to replicate some worn paint. And back here, those are supposed to be, that's glass back here. So what I'm going to do to replicate that, I've got a very, very minute tip inking pen for drafting, and I'll ink those black. That's how I'll do that. But so far so good. Now what I'm going to do next is I'll go ahead and tape around here to shoot the fabric color, and then I'll be able to pull the tape off when it's dry, and also the tape off the underside where the gray is, so that we can check the demarcation line along here and here on both sides. But I suspect it's going to look pretty good. So that's the fuselage, and here are the Bombay doors, which one goes here and the other one goes on the other side, and the yellow stripes match where the yellow stripes are on the fuselage. It's pretty close. So yeah, these demarcation lines came out really nice on both of these. So of course everything needs to be weathered, but I'm not there yet. So I've got just this area to paint, to airbrush, and then we can move on to the next step, which is pulling off some of the tape. And I think what I'll do is I'll put the wings on, and then we'll be in good shape to give it a gloss coat. No, let me back up. Once this is done, I'll give it a gloss coat, put the decals on, and then put a dull coat on, and then do the wings. And then I'll begin the weathering process. So yeah, looking pretty good. And I'm still waiting for my seamless turrets to come in from Cold War Studios, but I think once they come in, it'll look really, really good. So we're almost there. This is how I did the masking for the lighter color for the elevators, which were fabric covered. And so it's almost dry, and then pull the tape off, and then pull the tape off the gray areas, and we'll check everything. But that's how I did it. So yes, I use liberal amounts of masking tape so that I never have a problem with the airbrush paint dust going the other way and having to do more touch-up work. So a little bit of masking, a little bit of overkill goes a long way. I've got all the tape removed on the underside, and it came out pretty good. Nice sharp demarcation lines between the colors. There's the other side. Came out good. So now, next step is to go ahead and gloss it, put the decals on, and then put a flat coat. And once I put a flat coat on, because this is a semi-gloss, it's going to lighten this up a little bit. And then after that's done, we're ready to, got to do the same thing to the wings, and then we'll glue the wings on and do a little bit of weathering. So it's looking pretty good. I'm really pleased with how it looks so far. I've got the fuselage decals applied, and I've also given it a coat of Tester's clear dull coat, and of course it lightened up the sand color, because the sand color was a semi-gloss, and it came out really good, better than I thought it would. So here are the decals, and these decals came from a company called Mike Grant Decals, and the glue that they use for these decals is very thick, and so I submerged each decal for about 30 seconds in almost hot water, and I still had trouble getting them to slide off of the backing. But if you're patient, you can do it. The other thing is, even with a high gloss surface like I had on here, you can't slide these decals around. You got to do it. You got to position it properly as you're pulling it off the backing. Otherwise, you just can't move it around. The other thing is that that girl is supposed to have a white backing on it, but I was afraid that I would not be able to position the two decals one over the other because it's so difficult to move it around, and so I didn't put the white backing on it, and it came out pretty good. And here's the decals for the horizontal stabilizer. This one was a bit too long and I had to cut it down, but came out pretty good. So far so good. It's coming along. With a good gloss coat of polyurethane enamel, it really makes a big difference. So there's a lot of clear backing on here, but you can't see it because I have a nice shiny gloss coat, two coats actually. So that's the fuselage. Here's one wing. Same thing. Both sides got two applications of the Tester's dull coat. And here's the other wing. So we are ready to slide the wings in place and glue them. And I'm real pleased. So before I do that though, I'm going to go ahead and carefully scrape the paint off of this area here so that the rudders will, when I glue the rudders on, there'll be a nice strong bond. So that's the progress I've made so far. And I gotta tell you, I think it's going to look pretty good. I've got one of the rudders done, and it took a little bit of work to get these decals in place. This decal was too wide around here, and so I had to cut it out, and the way I did it was I used an old circular drafting stencil and kind of trimmed it down a little bit. It's not perfect, but it looks pretty good. And this is one that it's got two coats of the clear polyurethane gloss on it. But you can see what happens is when you hit it with a flat, it not only seals the decals, but it also lightens up the paint. So it looks pretty good. And here's the other side. and that doesn't have any clear coat on it yet. So yeah, it came out pretty good. I'm really pleased. I've got all the decals on the other rudder complete except for the numbers, and I'm waiting for a second decal sheet to come in because of course I screwed up the numbers and there was only 2 of them. So but I did want to show you, I had mentioned on the other rudder that I had to cut a piece out here, and that's how much you have to cut out in order for this to sit correctly. And how I did it was I used an old drafting stencil, circular stencil, and I used the 2 1/4 inch circle, and it worked out really, really well. And it cut out just enough. On the horizontal stabilizer, there's also a black and white stripe on there, and I had to cut out this much because it was too long. So you just need to be aware of those 2 factors when you're using these decals. And again, the glue on this is pretty tenacious. So even though this has got a high gloss surface on it, when you slide the decal off, there's no working time. It's got to be positioned right the first time. Otherwise, it is just going to be crooked. So these are ready, except I just need to, what I'll do with the last numbers, I'll turn it upside down and I'll use my tweezers and hold the number on this side and position it on the edge and then just pull it this way. So you got to really be careful how you use the decals. They look good, but you just got to be careful. I've got the propellers completed. The only thing left to do now is to just give them just a little bit of weathering, and the way I'll do that is I'll just run a silver paint along the edges here and then seal it with a clear flat coat, and maybe I'll do a little bit of sponging around here, but all 4 came out really, really nice. So we're getting there. So once the engines are on here, it's going to look really, really good. Thanks for watching part 6, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and if you get the chance, visit our website at www.mikeesche.com and stay tuned for part 7. With that, have a great evening and happy scale modeling.